Now it's a party. All right, so while we're getting everybody a chance to show up, uh, probably going to be a pretty quiet night tonight since we are switching to our new time, and I don't think everybody realized it, even though I announced it last week. So, but going forward, I'm just going to do a 1 hour show on Tuesday night starting at 8 o'clock. That way, all our shows during the week start at the same time. It just makes it easier on everybody, hopefully. This will take care of some of the West Coast people that have not been able to come to the terrain show because it's too early. See if that works a little better. I am working on more desert terrain tonight. Still working on the board for next year, traveling board, convention board. So I've got more hills to work on tonight. Some of the bigger pieces have not dried yet, so I'm not going to get to those tonight, but we're going to work on them to match up this was our initial piece that I did to kind of give me some color reference to go forward. So we're going to work on that a little bit. Voila. As always, I am here to answer any questions you might have about terrain, cav, minis, just whatever. All kind of can be kind of a free for all at times while I'm working on stuff, but it is what it is. Oh, I'm halfway here, kind of. Well, halfway is better than no way. Thank you. That's the initial skeleton piece that I did. That's kind of my proof of concept that I'm going to try to match everything up to it going forward. Like I said, that's going to be for my desert board, my traveling board next year. So we're going to work on some more hills and rough tonight. Just keep going at it. Not expecting a whole lot of people tonight. I think the changeover has caught some people not realizing that was already coming. That's all right. They'll learn. This way, though, we're same time every night. James on Monday, me Tuesday, everybody Wednesday night. So, and we're just going to do hour shows. But, and any questions, like I said, I'll answer anything. So, I'll go ahead and get started on some of these pieces. Keep that kind of there where I'm working on that. All right, now some of these started on with one way, and so some of these are in different levels of completion here. So let's see, what are we going to work on? Let's work on the hill. These were already based colored, and then I went back and added rocks and stuff to them. Stick with those first. Hello, Mr. JS Twitch. All right. So, like I said, I originally painted all these and I did my base and the dry brush and everything on here. Then I decided to go back and add the rocks. So, those got painted the dark brown that I used, and then did the brown wash on top of them. So now I've got this color here of a poop brown, like, but this is going to be my kind of my mid-tone color on my rocks, because I want my rocks to look different from the sand part. So first of all, we're just going to dry brush a little bit on the I want kind of a mid color here. Put the color back, kind of tie it in. And so that way the mid-tone I used on this was lighter than this, but I'll go back on it with the same highlight. So in my mind, that will make these look different enough, but tie in. I don't want to get too crazy because I don't want to screw up my wash that I. Then after it's all done and dried, I went back with the ink that I used, the stain, and sprayed with my airbrush, and so I won't get to that tonight, but that'll soften some of this up too. So this is just enough to kind of put a little different brown, bring it up a shade so it's not as dark. A little bit, it shares a little bit of tone with this color, a little more browny. It's kind of a dry brush, kind of a dab. Okay, so I don't know if you can see in the camera, but you can see how that lightened it up there. I didn't Yeah, I know. Yeah, my had quite the experience with our sink this week. That has really got me behind this week because I had to stop and fix it because, God forbid, you get the contractors to come back and fix it. Keep meaning to lined up. I always forget. Late. I know everybody loves to hear me hum. Hum on a hum on a hum. I don't. I mean, I look at, you know, uh, there should be at least a spot. Um, but you know, I mean, it's like on, you know, on the skeleton here. You know, I had a couple of spots in mind for it. You know, like here, spot here, like so. You know, but I don't try to worry about 50 different. I guess I get more tied up in how it looks than how it plays. Probably not good. I just and I pretty much just count this as, you know, anywhere where it can, if it can do it on its own without falling over. That's all I was just gonna say. From the way I play my terrain in a game is, you know, if you travel through and the area that you're coming through has got all this rock on it, you have to treat it as rough. Um, and you can stay on it. Yeah, and he can stand on it without falling over, then he can stand there on it. Here, you know, he's not going to do it. So that's the way I look at it. Now, can he move through it? If he has enough points, yes, treat it as rough, go through it. That's not a deal. But as far as stopping and standing on it, can't do it on his own, then he's got to move on or move up there. And that's one of those kind of rules. I mean, that's it's kind of free flowing, you know, how you want to play it. Sometimes you have to kind of be a little looser with something to get, you know, something to look at, something to play. And as far as rocks too, I well, that's where you have to, again, you have to make that decision. I mean, an elevation is basically 3/4 of an inch. So, you know, like this rock right here, you know, that's over 3/4 of an inch. So you know, I wouldn't let somebody travel over that. Um, Same thing here. I mean, with it being right here on the edge, you know, but it's just, there are just too many situations to try to come up with a firm rule. Like for here, you know, I would probably count that as a double elevation, with it being right on the one elevation and being as high as it is. You know, so give you heavy cover for it. I don't. It's probably a bad thing. I just don't get that tied up about. That's why I tend to make my tournament boards a lot more. This is and isn't, you know. It's not nearly as terrained out as these would be. I guess if I was using it for a tournament, I probably would beforehand have a little more of a rules set up on it. All right. That gets all of those. All right. So while that's kind of drying, these now. So these, I don't want to get on the rock, but or the big rocks, because I want to go back and do what I just did with those. But I want to do this other, the little lighter, my in between, my mid tone for my sands. So, all right. So this one, I'm working around the. I don't want to get on my rocks necessarily. So this is going to be my mid tone. This is going to bring this up a little. Be a little more aggressive with it. And this stuff here will brush. So be aware when you're dry brushing on sand. That's kind of the tone I'm looking for there. See as it changes up. That's all right. Normally I kind of go, like I said, I'd go at this a little different steps, but these were already made up, and so I'm just kind of adding as I go to get these fixed. Now this one's got a couple of little shrubberies that I 3D printed. Go in and glued on here, just plain. Normally I just use some tufts. I'm gonna go a little more up in here because this has kind of got some sand. That way, kind of tie the edges where I no tech elements in your terrain. I'm not following you. You have to talk slow to me, James. Kind of trying to get some of that sand color on it where it is. Yeah, it's kind of going to have double duty. I'm using it for photography and stuff when we start finishing up the art in the book. Um, and it's like I said, it's going to be the travel board for next year. There might be this monolith. Yeah. Okay. I think I got that kind of brought. Running out of space. Yeah. We'll work it in. The hardest part of all this is there's going to be so many pieces. You know, I'm working on the pyramids and redoing some pieces from some older stuff, and you know the you want all the coloring to be as close as possible with each other so that you don't have anything that you set down look so out of whack. Okay, so now this color, this will be my light color on the rock here. So that way it kind of ties it in a little bit more. Still keeps some of the darkness to it so that it does look different. Vanilla Latte Desert. I don't even know what color this is. Hopefully I've got the original because I got to match it. I pour this stuff out of the can sometimes. Forget what color it was. And you know, and I tend to be more into the browns with my desert than the yellows. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you were trying to do a Sahara board, you know, you might want to be a little more yellowy with it, but I just think this has a lot more. Okay, so that kind of gets it up a little bit. I'll probably lighten it up a little. The last color, but build it up. Now these hill pieces are more of these are more of the tops. So I'll do bigger pieces that these will sit on top of. That'll just be this here. You won't see as much of the. These are more of just the top piece, so that they don't all look so plain. And this is kind of a quick and dirty way of doing it too. There's just so much of it being made. I can't get too wrapped up with being perfect. I think for what it is, it looks good. I built a Martian board. Uh, um, that it's been 3 or 4 years ago. Um, with lots of pieces sticking up out of it and everything like that, very plateaus and things. The problem that I did though is I built the base of the board. I actually made it on plywood, so it's a 4x8 board in two halves. Put walls on it and filled all in, and so I thought it looked great. I thought it was very Martian looking. I've got pictures of it here and there. I'll try to get some back up. I think they're on the Facebook page, but they'll be way back. Um, but it just got to be a pain in the ass to take it anywhere. That was before I discovered mats. So it eventually got thrown away. I I kept a lot of the pieces that went on it, but it had a big center area and it had land bridges off each side of it. It was a lot of fun to play. But just became too hard to store and move around. All right. All right. So now we need to go back with our touch our rocks up a little there. Yeah, yeah, no, they can. They have to be, they have to be set up to do that. Just like being underwater or whatever. You have to have the amphibious SA. But yeah, they can be outfitted to. All right, back just a little bit of the line. She can get this over here. Side. All right, so that kind of gets all our tones on there. So we're ready for the very light color. Oops, fill them. Would be a mess. This one's this is a weird color. It's actually called ceramic beige. It's a very light cream color. You don't want to be too crazy with it, but it is a great color for bringing out the highlight terrain. It lightens it up. It's got a little bit of a yellow in it to bring some desert color into it. So, like I said, this has already been done, but I'm gonna I'm going to touch the rocks up just a little bit to bring them in. This will be the big. The one that I think really brings the desert. And I don't go as heavy on up here, trying to just kind of hit the edges more. Tie it all together. Brr. And when I go back and airbrush some of the darker stain back into it too, that'll tie some of the rocks together, because I tend to be more in those areas. But I just want to kind of catch the corners, the edges on my rocks, just so that it has some of that color to it. But it's getting pretty close here with the way it looks. And this has got the airbrushing already on, so. Hmm. And if I get too crazy, like I said, when I airbrush it, I can always pull those colors down a little bit. And I got one other little trick that I like to do them too. Show you. Here we're just as light as we can be. We're just trying to catch some edges and some of the rocks just to bring color into them. All right. I think that kind of gets all those. So what I like to do in my brush here that I okay, so what I like to do here, okay, after I got that done, I've got all my basic colors on there other than airbrushing my stain on there. But what I like to do is I've got this, it's Adon Prairie, got one of the Cav colors. But I like to get it, and you can see it's really out of whack color with these. Got a little bit more orangey to it. But I'll get some of this here. Plate. And then I want to mix a little water into it. Get it real strong. Just kind of do it so. But now I can come in here and I kind of find some spots where I think, you know, what would be just a little something to change things up a little bit. Want it real light. But it kind of gives that, I don't know if you've ever, and just kind of really spread it out. But if you've ever been like up in Colorado and you've seen like the ore and stuff for that they got the gold out of, it's always got all these colors, but it's got a little bit of this. And it's just a hint. I just like to kind of find areas to stick it in there, and it just kind of and I do it first before I do the airbrush color again, so that if I get too crazy, I can always use the same color in the airbrush, tone it down a little bit. I think it just gives it a little more along the sides, a little here. Like so. Just real hint. Blend it in, blend the edges real good. And you could airbrush this too. I just always do it with my brush so I don't have to have two different colors when I'm airbrushing. I have to worry about cleaning and there's also my desert matte that I've got has got kind of this color in it too, so that kind of helps tie that in. Save this one to the last because this has got the two little bronze that we're going to have. Kind of catching some of these rocks that I had to hit a little more aggressive because of the being in the way. Bring those out a little bit. Let's see, wrong ones. Then when I airbrush the dark color in, that'll give you the kind of these areas here that darken back up a little. But since I'm using that stain, it's so thin, it's just super easy to shoot through. So that's where I could actually, if I wanted to, I could do it just like. Guess I've got it. Sometimes I go a little more on one, sometimes a little less. Just change it all up. To me, the secret of good terrain is just the randomness of it. Okay, now prawn. Definitely hit the rocks. It's got kind of a shale like rock underneath it. A little different kind of rock than the boulders. So what I'm going to do with those, I with the original stain color that I use, the really dark walnut color, I do the same thing that I'm doing with this color. I just use the airbrush real light, but just because I was lazy. But I'm going to go ahead. I've got it up here, so I'm going to do it by brush. You can do it either way. But there's two fronds that I printed out, and I've got them in here, so I want to stick these in here right quick. Maybe up. And these you can do greens, you can do reds, whatever your little desert world wants to be. I'll also go in and put on some other shrubbery. I just want to put just a little bit of green to bring out my fronds. There was a STL Kickstarter that I backed that they did lots of plant life and stuff like that, and of course they did it for 28 millimeters. So but I printed some out really small to see how they would turn out for this scale. And I thought they did pretty good. And you could even take this color and, if you wanted to, and do a little bit of some of that too, a little like moss or something. I said just change it up a little bit. I'm going to put a little on this one, bronze on. All right, so that kind of adds some green to them there. I've got this lighter green. I'm just going to dry brush on top of them just to bring out a little detail. These were just two greens I grabbed off the shelf. Some of these have seen hard use. All right. Now we're just kind of touching. Bring out the detail of the fronds a little bit. I'd usually let them dry a little bit more before I did it, but all right. All right. Okay, so that gets our little fronds on there. All right, so this is my American walnut stain. I've determined this is one of my favorite out of all these stains that I've ended up getting. It's just a great color. And it's weird because most of these stains, especially all the brown, they all look about the same in the can. But when you actually start getting them out, change up. So again, I don't really need to thin this down because it's already, like I said, normally I just shoot it straight through my airbrush. So I just want a little on here. And again, I'm just going to go in and find some areas. Bring some of that darkness back into it. The airbrush just makes really nice transitions. If I got somewhere I got a little aggressive with the lighter colors, I could dark back. The stain it just smooths out. It's so easy to blend. And then if you want a little shadow area, you know, you can go back in there and do it a little darker. Darker down in the crevices. Anyway, so that's basically it. That's what a piece looks like. And other than going in and putting some little shrubs on there, little tufts, that's pretty much finishes them up for all that I'm going to do. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with them. This is a kind of a new color combination that's kind of when I was working on the skeleton one that I wanted to see how it was going to turn out. And you know, on some of these big rocks, you can kind of take that stain and kind of, you know, give it some water. Water's come down a little bit. Not that I guess there would be a lot of water in the desert, but who knows what might have happened at some point. There's just more of the backdrop. It's the when you read the backstory, it's got it. A lot of the original settlers were Egyptian and Syrian, so they kind of built their pyramids for their heritage, I guess. And they just look cool. Well, you know, the good thing about, at least with this, is I can go get more. I've got the name of it now. American walnut. But I got a yeah. Well, like I said, especially if I'm when I'm spraying an airbrush or something, um, it's already toned way down. It's just so it doesn't. You can water it down if you want to. I just goes a long way though, and it's only $8 a can. So I got um, oh, yeah, that's from shaking it, getting all that air in it. Um, but there was like an ebony and a gray, which I think is going to look really good on for um, washing on a white surface. I'm looking forward to doing some white calves or something. Which ones I've done and haven't done. Say this brush is pretty much wino si. Well, yeah. Well, when the pyramids are not going to be like the pyramids of Egypt. They're going to be a futuristic version of. You shall see when. And you got to remember that the big pyramid's going to be sitting on top of a base, so you'll see plenty of sci-fi there. Don't worry, James. There'll be some sci-fi stuff in here. Plus, you're going to have lots of lots of different. You have a goal deadline in mind. I'd kind of like to have it done by the end of the year, just in case we start being able to go to conventions again. So I've got lots of pieces still to build. So because it's going to be for multiple setups for different scenarios and some buildings and stuff. I'm thinking real seriously about building some kind of that Tatooine, kind of Star Wars for some of the structures kind of look. Because you can take, yeah, well, like I said, this gives me something to work on at least for Tuesdays. Uh, but you can do really cool Adobe or whatever like that with the Tatooine is after you build it, cardboard or whatever you use on that, is you can get that flex stone, that they have for spraying on and stuff like that. But don't spray it super thick. But you can spray that all over your building before you paint it and everything like that. And that it gives it just enough it kind of rounds the corners up a little bit. Yeah, the textured rattle can paint, the Flex Stone, I think is what they call it, or something. The brand that I like to use, and you can spray that, and like I said, it kind of rounds the corners off, and it's and then when you paint over it, it gives you something to dry brush, catch the paint a little bit, and you get a really cool Adobe look to it, I think. Chris, and in my mind too, that you know, we're talking kind of the outlying areas of settled space and stuff like that. So I think that they're going to have a more of a. I don't think they're going to be as high sci-fi maybe as James would like it to be. I think that's part of it too. I think that they're. It is. Yep. I use the blue stuff. You can't get the pink and 3/4 of an inch anymore for some reason. Um, but the blue stuff still does. So that's what I use for cav scale. 3/4 of an inch works out pretty close to one elevation level. In cav, 1 inch equals 15 feet. So elevation levels are 10 foot tall. So it's not exact, but it's close enough to save you a lot of effort and trying to get something that'll be exactly. Just with the airbrush, when I go in and was if I was spraying this, you could really feather the edges a lot more for a lot less work. That's why this one. All right, what else? That one. This is the last one. Kind of making some shadows. I guess you never know which way your light's going to go, but all right. I think I'm good. That's all of our pieces. Kind of, oh, as he oops, across the table here. All right, over here, fix this. Where actually where I spilled it. Always got to be something. Get it all. All right, never happened. Bad thing about all these browns is after you're done, it looks like you pooped all over your. All right, so let's see. We'll try to get as much of this on here as we can. Okay. Yeah, I've got that. I've got some cherry hummus hand cleaner. Okay, so there we are. I think everything kind of matches up with the original piece. Like I said, I've still got to go in and put some uh, little tufts. I'm kind of using a it's kind of a rough looking one, so that it's more of a scrubby look to it. I think those are Army Painter and they're Marsh or something. But I think overall, I think the colors all match up good. I think it all will stay together. Anyway, anybody have any other questions, any comments or anything before we call it a night? you get a chance, Thunderhead Studios was showing off some of the Duracast dual cast figures on his stream tonight. I think he was very, very complimentary of them, and was, I think, more surprised how they turned out and things he could do with them that I don't think that he thought was going to be possible. So, but no, I'm happy with them. And like I said, these are going to be more of top pieces and stuff like that. The bigger heels will get bigger and not have nearly the rock and stuff. It'll be of the sand it's for him to sit on. But I still have my, like I said, I've got all the buildings to do. Obviously more heels. I'm finishing up the big hill that's the base that the pyramid will go on. That was that was the piece I did today, so it was still it's still drying because it had to put a lot of sand on it to cover up everything on the deal. Then some other buildings, you know, I've got a couple of little desert villages that I'm going to put together, you know, just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, little grouping. Maybe some moisture farming stuff, my version of or something. So lots of little things that we can put on the board that'll look good for pictures and get ready for the Terrans and the Rock to shake it up a little bit. So anyway, so James, we're on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. You have any suggestions for what you want to talk about tomorrow? That must be no. You have no suggestions you want to talk about tomorrow? I'll come up with something. I'll do better. I will have a topic for it. So, I wish it wasn't so hard to pop up pictures and stuff like that. There's 2 or 3 things I'd like to do, but it's such a pain in the butt to get it pictures up. Not having somebody back up. Maybe I can get one of my sons to come up and be a tech tomorrow. Anyway. All right, folks, I am going to call it a night. I'm going to send everybody back to their little hobby corner. Hopefully this has inspired you to work tonight on something. And I will see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Chris will be back Saturday at 2 o'clock. He's still working on the larger scale infantry guys for a future project that we're going to do. So you might want to check some of those out. They're looking pretty cool. And other than that, I will see you tomorrow night. So be safe. Good night.